Welcome to the first webinar of the FY25 round of the Community One Stop for Growth. My name is Ashley Stolba, and I'm Undersecretary of Economic Foundations with the Executive Office of Economic Development. On behalf of the Healy Driscoll Administration and Economic Development Secretary Yvonne Howe, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your interest in supporting and advancing economic growth in your community. So this is a series of webinar that is designed to help you understand the one-stop, both in terms of technical aspects, as well as how your project's economic development goals fit into the process. So as we've done with previous years, I know many of you have joined us for the past couple of years that we've been doing this. We've designed these webinars for anyone that is interested in learning about the process and how to access our state resources offered through the one-stop. Whether you're a municipal official or part of a private organization, if you're interested in learning more about how to access state funds to support projects that will enhance the economic development goals of your community, you are in the right place. So we will also be recording all webinars and posting them to the One Stop website so you can watch them in the future. So today I'm joined by our awesome staff of the Executive Office of Economic Development, and I'm sure you know them very well. So we have Juan Vega, Assistant Secretary for Communities and Programs, and also Pat Shannon, our Community One Stop Coordinator. None of this would be possible without them, and we are so grateful that they are leading us in these efforts. So here we have a little agenda. We are going to take a comprehensive look of the FY25 round of the One Stop. So we're going to start with an overview of the One Stop, including a quick history, a review of the grants provided in the first 3 rounds, and all programs in the One Stop. We're then going to discuss a lot of the improvements that we've made since the last round and dive into details related to the development continuum, the guidance phase, including the expression of interest in our new virtual office hours, and the full application. I will just say that we continue to make improvements year over year, thanks to all the feedback that all of you provide to us every year. So we are going to end today's sessions by answering some FAQs. So we ask that you submit your questions through the Q&A function on your screen, and questions will be aggregated. So all the responses will be posted in an FAQ document on the website, as we've done in previous years. So just a brief history of the One Stop. So over the years, we have heard from communities all across the state about the challenges accessing and even knowing about the state funding resources available to help advance their goals for economic growth. Communities expressed that it was really difficult to track down all the programs offered by the different agencies on different timelines that never seemed to align well with the community's own plans. So we took all this feedback in, and it made us look at how we did all of our programs and how we can improve access and streamline the entire grant process. So we're very excited to report that the result of that was the Community One Stop for Growth. So this is a portal that consolidates 12 community and economic development grant programs offered by the Executive Office of Economic Development, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and Mass Development into one single application and a collaborative review process. So there are a ton of wonderful things and benefits that are coming from the One Stop, both for you as an applicant and for us as state officials. So first, during the guidance phase, applicants will have the opportunity to receive feedback on potential project proposals before a full application is even opened through the expression of interest process. So we'll discuss that process in more detail shortly, but it really is a great opportunity that I encourage all applicants to take advantage of. It's completely optional, but it is very useful to you. So I suggest that you take advantage of it. Another great benefit of the One Stop is that it saves applicants time while expanding access to funding opportunities. So we all know that all of your organizations have very limited staff resources, and it does take a significant amount of time as you research and apply for all these grant programs for the same project, and it's super frustrating. We know that. So with the One Stop, applicants have access to the state programs most likely to support your community economic development project in one location with one single deadline and one single submission process. So even if your project is not a great fit for the One Stop program, I will just let you know that we look at every single one of these and we'll try to point you in the right direction to another state grant program if we think one would be a good fit. We work very, very closely with all of our colleagues in our fellow secretariats. So finally, the partnership between the state and applicants allow us for a full view of the community's priority projects and provides our one-stop partner agencies, which is really all of our agencies across state government. We work together to really help you bring your goals to fruition. So we're able to recognize projects that have progressed year over year, and we can better coordinate resources in the past that we would have historically looked at in silos. So I'm now going to hand it over to the awesome team to go through the rest of the slides. And I'll also just mention that we have Helena Altman, who is on to answer any questions. She is also an awesome key player of the economic development team, and we are so happy to have her on too. So Juan, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. Very much appreciated. So let's see. Welcome, everyone. We do want to, as Ashley mentioned, thank you for your participation. It's an exciting year for us. This is now our 4th round of the Community One Stop. We do want to encourage you to, we do have a very large audience participating in this webinar, and so we want to encourage you to submit questions. Helena is going to be helping monitor those, and as we go through, we will provide an opportunity after our presentation to review some question as time allows. So let's see, we want to start with, let's see, the overview of the one-stop process. And so the one-stop has evolved over those 4 years, but we have maintained true to the model which essentially is comprised of the 4 stages. We have the guidance phase, which we are currently going into. We have the full application, the collaborative review process, and then finally the award decisions. The guidance phase really is the opportunity for applicants to receive direction and to ask questions prior to submitting their full application. This has proved to be an important part of our process, as it allows applicants who are thinking, or prospects that are thinking about applying to something with the state, to get some of that feedback before investing time in completing the full application, instead of spending more time and then finding out afterwards why it wasn't as strong as it could be. And so this year we're offering 3 main tools during this guidance phase: the expression of interest, the webinars, which we'll talk some more about, more webinars, and then a new component will be virtual office hours. We will go into detail for each of these during this presentation, but we do encourage anyone considering submitting an application to take advantage of all 3. Next, the full application is the streamlined grant application, which makes up the primary part of the one-stop. It's a form that allows applicants to submit comprehensive project proposals for funding consideration. Applicants answer a series of questions based on where their project falls within the development life cycle. It's a scale that we call the development continuum. The single application structure allows projects to be reviewed by multiple programs that may fit the project's funding needs, but the applicant is only submitting their proposal once. The review across agencies and programs we call the collaborative review phase of process. Staff from the 3 agencies, the 3 partner agencies that are working together on the one-stop, review all the applications, making sure that applications are reviewed by all appropriate programs and that agencies are aligned in their funding recommendations. So it comes to an end with the announcement, obviously, of the grant awards. And if a project is not recommended for an award in this round, we do offer the opportunity for the applicant to receive feedback from the programs that reviewed that application. Okay, on our next slide, as also Ashley mentioned, the one-stop includes 12 grant programs across 3 agencies. And so the Executive Office of Economic Development has the MassWorks Infrastructure Grant Program, the Rural Development Fund, the Urban Agenda Grant Program, and the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities is our second partner And we will talk some more about Housing Works, but Housing Works infrastructure program is now included fully in the One Stop, the Housing Choice Grant Program, and Community Planning Grant Program. And then our third partner is the Mass Development Finance Agency, and they have 5 programs in the One Stop: the Underutilized Properties Program, Site Readiness, Collaborative Workspaces, Brownfields Redevelopment, and Real Estate Technical Assistance. You can visit each program's website to view their guidelines. Next up, we want to focus a little bit about the last 3 years, our past results, to put all of this into text. We want to look at so far, it's been a pleasure to be able to make, the One Stop has been able to make 869 grant awards across all of the programs in the One Stop, which has resulted in the distribution of over $396 million in funding. We've had great participation across the Commonwealth. We've had applications submitted by 760 different organizations for projects in 296 of our communities. The downside, of course, is that the competition for funding continues to increase. And so, as you can see, both the number of applications received and the amount of funding requested continues to far exceed what we're able to do each year, with just over half of the applications submitted receiving an award over the course of the 3 years. The amount of funding requested has also grown even more substantially, with the FY24 round seeing more funding requested than FY22 and FY23 combined. We also want to focus a little bit on regional equity, and which is a key consideration and of utmost importance for all of our agencies and the administration when we're making funding decisions. Over the first 3 rounds of the One Stop, we've provided funding for projects within 243 of the 351 Massachusetts municipalities, covering every corner of the state, and we hope to continue seeing this map fill in. So now we want to focus on kind of the new components this year, what's new. So first up, we want to, as you know, and we've talked about, the One Stop continues to evolve, and we get a lot of great suggestions and feedback from all of you that have applied to the programs over the years that have helped us continue to further improve and further develop this initiative. And so each year we look for more ways to improve, and we have several very exciting improvements to announce for the FY25 round. First, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities new Housing Works infrastructure program is now fully integrated into the One Stop. The Healy Driscoll administration introduced Housing Works last summer, as you may recall, as a means to fund infrastructure improvements that are necessary to focus on their goals of unlocking more housing development. And although the program is not launched until the end of the last One Stop round, the Housing and Livable Community staff were able to review One Stop applications submitted through the infrastructure section that aligned with the program's mission. And because of this, the administration was able to announce the program's first round of awards this past fall. And similar to MassWorks, the Housing Works program funds pre-development and construction of improvements to publicly owned infrastructure. One of the differences is that Housing Works is really focused and dedicated on those improvements that are going to directly support the development, rehabilitation, and/or preservation of housing. The other new exciting development has been an improvement in the expression of interest process. We're excited to launch a new look for the expression of interest at the end of this week. We have moved the EOI out of the IGX system and have turned it into a very simple web form, accessed directly from the One Stop website. The form is available to any organization that is considering submitting an application, regardless of whether they have registered in the IGX system. This new structure also removes the limit on the number of EOIs that an organization can submit. Again, this was a key component and feedback that we got last year. Folks wanted to kind of be able to submit more EOIs, they wanted to submit more projects. And so this new form is going to be asking applicants to write a very brief project abstract and answer some multiple choice questions, removing the longer narratives that we had in the old form. And this new structure will not only make the form quicker to submit, it will also reduce the time that it will take our staff and our internal review team to read and review each project, meaning that the feedback will be returned to the applicant. Our hope is in a matter of days instead of weeks. So we'll be able to review these EOIs much faster, and we'll be able to provide feedback much faster. There is not going to be a limit to the number of these that you can submit or the number of projects that you can submit. I guess one big change is that for each form, you will be able to submit one project. And you will then be able to there will limit to how many forms you can submit. Next up, we want to talk about virtual office hours, a new addition to this process. Again, in the feedback that we received from our application process around last year, we heard that there was a desire for more direct interaction with staff. So to supplement the guidance that you would be receiving through the expression of interest, our team will be hosting 2 separate virtual office hours series. The first one will be general guidance from the one-stop admin team to allow applicants to ask one-stop specific questions related to the general one-stop process. And then in addition, each one-stop program will host individual program office hours to answer questions specific to that program. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on these virtual office hours later in the presentation. And then we had a few additional notes to make on the FY25 round and some of the changes. We have further consolidated the full application to forms that will be completed by all applicants, regardless of the type of project being proposed. In this process, we were able to eliminate a number of questions that produce redundant answers. We believe that these changes will result in less time required to complete the application. In addition, we have an update related to the multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. Similar to last year, any community not in compliance with the law will not be eligible for funding through the Housing Choice Grant Program, the Housing Works Grant Program, nor MassWorks. In this round, all other one-stop programs will now take into consideration the community's compliance when making compliance or lack thereof when making their funding decisions. For all information related to the requirements of the MBTA communities, please visit the website mass.gov/MBTA community. And now I want to do a quick overview of the development continuum that we have referenced. Throughout this presentation, you will continue to hear about the development continuum. It is a critical component of one-stop. It represents how we have organized all these programs to represent the life cycle of most major community development projects, from the initial community visioning and planning to the actual construction. Applicants should look to the development continuum as a guide for where they believe their project might fit within the one-stop. The continuum is broken up into 2 broad categories. The first are categories that we consider related to the preparing for growth. These are the grants that support activities and initial steps by community-based actors to attract and guide private investment into their community. The preparing for growth section includes grants for community activation and placemaking projects, for planning and zoning, as well as site preparation development in these continuum categories. The second group here on the right of the screen is what we call the catalyzing specific projects. And this includes grants that will support the implementation of construction activities that are meant to leverage private investment, leading to new commercial, industrial, and residential development, as well as any other improvement that further the community's vision. This group includes the building and infrastructure development continuum categories. Now I'm happy to pass this to Pat to bring us into a deeper dive into the development continuum.
Great, thanks, Juan. So my name is Pat Shannon, and I'm the Community One-Stop Coordinator here at EED. So we're going to start by taking a look at applicant eligibility as it relates to the development continuum. So here you can see all types of public organizations are welcome and encouraged to submit an application through the One Stop. Municipalities and other public entities such as redevelopment authorities and housing authorities may apply for funding through all 5 development continuum categories. Non-municipal public entities are also eligible to apply through the One Stop. However, any non-municipal applicant is encouraged to open a discussion with their municipal leadership to ensure coordination and local support. Non-public entities will also be considered for funding by programs that allow for financial assistance to private organizations. So nonprofit and community development corporations are eligible for funding through the community activation and placemaking, site preparation, and building categories, and more specifically, the Urban Agenda Grant Program and community activation, placemaking, site readiness and site preparation, and then underutilized properties program and collaborative workspace in the buildings category. For-profit entities are only eligible to apply through the buildings category, and more specifically through underutilized properties program and the collaborative workspace program. So here you can see where each program falls within the development continuum. In the full application, applicants will see links to the guidelines for the programs that are most likely to review your application. I would highly recommend everybody to take the time to review the guidelines prior to completing the application so that you're familiar with each program and understand the eligibility requirements and permissible funding activities for each program. Those that participated in the last round may notice a slight change on this slide. So real estate technical assistance is now accessed through the planning and zoning categories for projects related to district redevelopment and technical assistance, or I'm sorry, district redevelopment technical assistance, as well as the site preparation category for municipal surplus property disposition planning. And again, the new Housing Works infrastructure program is accessed through the infrastructure section. So now we're going to take a look at each development continuum category in detail, and we will start with community activation and placemaking. So for the FY25 round, there's 2 types of projects supported in this category. The first is technical assistance for downtowns, which is associated with the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, and supports projects to identify strategies to improve the community's downtown area. Successful applicants receive a $25,000 worth of technical assistance from a consultant assigned by the program to conduct a study and provide a report on specific issues or opportunities in the downtown that the community can use as a guide to spark revitalization. The second project type is programming to promote equitable workforce and business development. And that funds the operations of programming with the goal of advancing economic progress. So this category or this project type is associated with the Urban Agenda Grant Program. Funding is intended to support community economic development that's grounded in collaboration and local leadership development. And these projects are open to both public and nonprofit organizations, specifically the equitable workforce and business development programming. I'll just note technical assistance for downtown is only available to public entities. Next up, we have planning and zoning. So planning and zoning is made up of 4 different project types. The first 3, community plan, zoning revision, and planning for housing, are primarily associated with the community planning grant program. Community plan supports planning activities that guide a community's vision, such as a master plan, housing production plan, or urban renewal plan. Funding through zoning revision supports updates to a community's current zoning. And this can include updating zoning to comply with the multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. The third project type associated with community planning grants is planning for housing, which supports planning activities to advance the development, preservation, and/or rehabilitation of housing in a community. This could include a housing feasibility plan, infrastructure plan, housing site master plan, or a housing site design plan that helps bring a housing development within the community to life. The fourth category is district redevelopment technical assistance, which, as I just noted, is supported by the Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program. The intent of this program, the intent of this project type is to fund planning efforts to identify opportunities for growth within a commercial, industrial, or mixed-use district. The district for these projects generally should contain underutilized properties or municipal surplus properties that are intended for future redevelopment. So any project submitted in the planning and zoning category is also eligible for review by the Housing Choice Grant Program, as well as the Rural Development Fund, for applicants that have, I'll say for public organizations that have those respective designations. And again, funding through this category is only available to public entities. So the site preparation category supports projects that have the goal of preparing a site for future development. Generally, these are sites that in their current state need work before they can become attractive or ready for private development that will result in future jobs and/or housing. So first project type we have is brownfield site cleanup, which is associated with the Brownfield Redevelopment Fund. This category provides funding to conduct site assessment and remediation activities on publicly owned parcels. It's important to note that to be eligible for funding, the contamination on the site cannot have occurred while the applicant owned the land, and an end user for the site should not yet be identified. Site improvements to unlock development is supported by the Site Readiness Program and funds the pre-development and construction of site work to prepare a parcel for future development. So on the pre-construction side, this can include activities like site due diligence, civil engineering, and market studies. And the construction side is more of the physical work to prepare the site. In addition to public entities, nonprofit organizations and community development corporations are eligible to apply for funding through site readiness. The third project type is municipal surplus property disposition. And this, again, is the second project type in the development continuum that's supported by Real Estate Services Technical Assistance. These are technical assistance projects to determine the best use of municipally owned property that either has been or will be officially surplused by the community. Both site improvements to unlock development and municipal surplus property disposition projects are also eligible for funding by Housing Choice and the Rural Development Fund. However, brownfields projects are not. So now moving to the later side of the continuum, we're going to start with the building category. And again, this is the only category in the one-stop that has funding opportunities for for-profit entities. So first up, we have underutilized property rehabilitation, which, as the name suggests, is tied to the Underutilized Properties Program, which we refer to as UPP. So UPP grants support the design or construction of improvements that are essential to the occupancy of an existing building that is currently not operating within its full potential. It's important to note that the applicant must own the building and funding will not pay for the construction of any new structures. Creating collaborative workspace is the collaborative workspace program spot in the building category. This program supports both feasibility studies and the fit out of new collaborative workspace. Some examples of collaborative workspaces include co-working space, makerspace, shared kitchens, accelerators, and innovation centers. Both UPP and collaborative workspace funding is available to all entity types. So if you are a for-profit, you are eligible for funding through these programs. UPP is also UPP applications are also eligible for review by the Rural Development Fund and Housing Choice Grant Program. But again, that's only offered to public entities within either rural or housing choice community. The last project type in the building category is community-led housing, which is a new offering through the Housing Choice Grant Program. Awards granted for these projects will provide funding to eligible housing choice communities to further support the production, rehabilitation, and or preservation of housing within the community. And our last development continuum category is infrastructure, which is home to MassWorks and the new Housing Works infrastructure programs. And this category is only available to public organizations. So both MassWorks and Housing Works are very similar in that they fund pre-development and construction of infrastructure improvements. However, the key differentiator is the type of development being supported. So Housing Works infrastructure program is focused on funding infrastructure projects that support the development of fully residential projects. So if you have a project to conduct pre-development or construction of infrastructure that's needed for a fully residential development to move forward, you should pursue public infrastructure to support housing growth. Infrastructure projects supporting new private development that creates new commercial or industrial space. Applicants should select the public infrastructure to support mixed use and or commercial industrial growth project type for review by MassWorks. So infrastructure improvements that support mixed use, so meaning projects that contain both housing and commercial space belong in that category. So it should be looking towards MassWorks funding rather than Housing Works. The third project type in infrastructure is small town road improvements to enhance public safety, which is also funded through the MassWorks program. These grants are available to towns with a population of 7,000 or less to address roadway safety concerns, including dangerous road conditions and specific threats such as the imminent collapse of a culvert. So now I will hand it back to Juan.
Great. Thank you, Pat. So now we want to move to kind of a little bit more detail on the various components of our process. And so I'll start here with just kind of the spring, the general overview of a one-stop. We are obviously currently open. We are moving through the guidance phase, and we're going to share some more details about the expression of interest, the webinars, and the off hours. The next kind of step in this process is that you will start working on your full applications. We can see already that a lot of you have gotten a jump start. The IGX system is live, and folks can log in and start working on their full applications and select their continuum categories as noted. Pat just described. These are the kind of the 5 main categories. Once we have the deadline for submissions, all 3 agencies and all the program managers will convene and start a review and evaluation of all the applications. There will be opportunity for collaborative review, comparing notes, comparing applications, and seeing how folks can which programs are going to be able to make a funding recommendation. And then we move into the award decision phase, where grants will either be recommended and approved up by various secretariats, and or not. And if not, then there will be an opportunity to get some feedback. We will note, I think, throughout all of that the one-stop process and demand for all of these programs continues to increase. So it becomes even more competitive each year. And so that's why it's important for us to provide this feedback on the back end, but also for those of you that are taking advantage of the guidance phase, hopefully we'll also get some tips on how to make your applications stronger. We also just want to do a quick check-in on the overall timeline this year's round. So we launched on January 19th in coordination with the Lieutenant Governor's announcement at the MMA conference. And then as of and as of January 19th, applicants were begin working on their application in the IGX platform. So we're currently in the guidance phase of the process, and as discussed, this is a time to take advantage of the EOI, expression of interest, the office hours and webinars. We will note that in all cases here, all the guidance components are voluntary. They're not required for you to be able to submit a full application for consideration, but we highly recommend that anybody, any prospective applicant, take advantage of these guidance phase components to be able to get feedback and a suggestion on improving the competitiveness of your application. And for this guidance phase, once the guidance phase closes, as we open full application submission period, applicants submit their applications beginning May 6th through the final deadline of June 5th at 11:59 p.m. That is when the IGX system will turn off. And then following submission deadline, the collaborative review process will begin, and we will continue through the summer. And we anticipate being able to make final decisions on grants as well as announcement events in all of 2024, similar to last year. And here we want to focus a little bit on the, as we describe the expression of interest. And so we're going to run through the tools offered to applicants. We're going to run through the various tools, starting with the expression of interest, which has been the popular component of the one-stop since we started the initiative. And as already discussed, the EOI will look a little bit different this year. However, the purpose value remains the same. For those that are new to the one-stop, the EOI, as I've already mentioned, is optional, but it's highly encouraged. It is a form that allows applicants to essentially pitch their ideas to the program team here between the three agencies before they start really investing time in completing a application. Prospective applicants complete the short form. On the right hand of the screen is what this will look like on the web page. And we will be asking for a brief abstract and a few multiple choice questions to help frame and describe the project. And after internal review, the applicant gets back from us a feedback report, which indicates that the project is a fit, essentially. Well, if the applicant is a fit or eligible, if the project that they're thinking about may be a fit for at least one or more of the grant programs for the one-stop. And if the project is a fit, the report's going to show where the project falls on development continuum, which programs are likely to best align with this project, and then some tips and suggestions how to strengthen the application to be more competitive. In other cases, the report may tell the applicant that their project is not a fit for the one-stop. And in our opinion, is likely not worth the effort to complete the full application. If a state program offered outside of the one-stop might be, once we read the description, if we find that perhaps there is another state program that might be a better fit, we will include that information in the report. And again, it's a voluntary. The information is to support and help the applicant. Ultimately, each grantee or each entity will have to decide whether they go ahead and submit that full application. So again, the EOI will now be accessed directly through the one-stop website. And you can go to www.mass.gov/one-stop. That'll take you to the form, a link to the form that you will be able to complete. And the important change is we've removed the limit on the number of EOIs that any one organization could submit. So there is no limit. Each organization may submit more than one expression of interest, as each expression of interest that is submitted will be one project. And so there'll no longer be this limit of 5 projects or 2 projects, et cetera. However, this new format is requiring, as I mentioned, one project idea per form, and you can submit as many projects to get feedback. And next up, we want to talk a little bit about these, a new component of this year. It's the virtual office hours. And the purpose behind these is to allow for a more direct interaction with staff that isn't possible through this expression of interest form. There'll be two series. One will be general to the community one-stop growth, for applicants to ask questions about the process of the entire one-stop. And then each of the 12 programs in the one-stop have a schedule, and they're posted on the website now. We'll have the availability of individual office hours with program staff from that program who will be able to take questions and provide some feedback specific to the program. So again, for the full schedule of all the available hours, please visit www.mass.gov/one-stop. And a final slide here, want to focus on, obviously, if you're watching the webinar live, you are already aware that the third component of our process is the webinars. And so each year, we host 3 main webinars to help familiarize applicants with the one-stop. This webinar today is the first webinar, which is the overview of the entire one-stop. Next, we will be hosting a live webinar, which is scheduled for February 7th. And that'll be specifically going through the application itself, the various components, providing guidance on how to fill out the full application. And then we will wrap up the week with the pre-recorded technology webinar that will be posted directly on the website on Thursday of this week. That was posted, the plan is to post that on February 8th. A new component this year is that each of the programs will be providing pre-recorded webinar that is very specific to that program. And so this essentially taking, expanding on the program guidelines and getting a little bit more detailed. All these program webinars will be posted on the website. We plan to have those posted the week of February 16th or on February 16th. If you have an idea of which program you are interested in or which ones you want to find out more about, we definitely recommend watching those webinars. Now I'll hand it back to Pat. He will now walk us more deeply into the full application.
All right, thanks again, Juan. So the full application is the vehicle for applicants to submit your grant request. As Juan noted, the full app is now open in the IGX system, so you can start working on your applications, but you will not actually be able to submit them until May 6th. That's the start of our full application submission period, and all applications will be due by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, June 5th. So there's no limit to the number of applications that any organization can submit. However, it's important to remember that that you must submit a separate application for each project that you'd like considered for funding. So today we're providing a high-level overview of the structure of the full application, but I encourage everyone to join on Thursday for webinar 2, where we're going to go into detail about how to complete the application and provide some different project scenarios. So after the June 5th deadline, we'll start the collaborative review process, where all applications are reviewed by program staff to determine which of the one-stop programs are best suited to achieve the applicant's objective. The review includes initial screening based on statutory and regulatory and eligibility requirements, as well as program guidelines. From there, applications will be kind of fully vetted and evaluated based on the following core criteria: whether the project has an achievable scope, the ability of the applicant to execute the project, having an achievable timeline and reasonable budget, the outcomes and impacts of the project, and any progress that has been made to date. So as was the case in the first 3 rounds, we expect that grant decision letters will be sent in the fall of 2024, at which point applicants will start working on contracting with the respective respective programs. So now we'll take a look inside the application, show you how it's structured in the IGX system. So when you open a full application, you'll see a blue menu on the left side of the screen. And you'll see a header up labeled forms. So this is how you navigate to the different sections of the application. The first form you'll see is one-stop resources. So we know that there's a lot of information out there on the one-stop and that applicants may need while you're working on your applications. So we want to make sure that all this information was in one place and as easy to access as possible when applicants need it the most. So anytime you're kind of jammed up or have questions about the one-stop process or applications, I'd say to start by clicking that one-stop resources tab and seeing if you can have your question answered there. So on the one-stop resources page, we have information about the full application, eligibility, the development continuum, and links to program websites, among other information. And I'll just note that this form is entirely informational, so no applicant action is required here, just for your benefit. So now we get into the actual application. So we start with Form 1, applicant information, which should be familiar to folks that have participated in the past. This is where you enter your general organization information, contact information, kind of general description of the organization, etc. There's also an opportunity for the applicant to indicate whether this is they're submitting a joint application. And by this, we mean a formal joint application, a formal arrangement for the allocation of funds between 2 or more organizations at the time of contracting, as opposed to just an informal project partner that are common in most projects. Public organizations will also be asked several questions related to their interest in pursuing some economic development tools that are offered outside of the one-stop, and MBTA communities or applicants within MBTA communities will also see some additional questions where applicable. Form 2, project information, is where applicants will answer all questions related to the actual project and the request for funding. So in the past, applicants completed one form for what we can call our shared core questions that pretty much all applicants are asked. Then they'd have to answer another form with questions related to the development continuum category that the project fell into. And then in some cases, some public organizations may have completed a third form with questions related to the community's special designation, so housing choice, for example. We also had an additional form at the very end of the application dedicated to optional attachments that were not required when completing the application. So we took a look at this, and all of these forms have now been consolidated into this single Form 2, project information. So in the process of this consolidation, we are also able to eliminate quite a few questions, including the entire community activation and placemaking and planning and zoning additional information sections. So if you're submitting a application for a project in one of these categories, you'll see that the form actually stops following the project core. So hopefully you'll have a much quicker experience completing the form. And the last form that applicants must complete is Form 3, which is the certification of application submission authority. This is just a signature page certifying that the applicant has the authority to submit on behalf of the organization, and it must be completed by either the organization's chief executive or an official authorized by the organization to submit. All right, so now I am going to hand it back to Juan for our frequently asked questions.
Great, thank you very much, Pat. So we've now come to the place in our agenda with the time that we have left. We would like to, and thank you. We see a ton of questions coming through, so very much appreciate that. We're going to walk through. I have a few questions to get us started. We'll cover a few of the questions that have come in through the Q&A. We'll know we may not be able to get to all of them. We have them. We will be reviewing them, and to the extent that that we can, we will be posting those on the website. So let's get started. One of the questions we get all the time is, can I submit a full app even though I didn't do one of the expressions of interest? This is particularly the case where the expression of interest deadline has passed and folks think ask this question about being able to participate. So the answer is absolutely yes. The expression of interest is offered as really an optional guidance component. It is meant to provide the prospective applicant with some information to decide really whether they want to invest the time that it's going to take to put together a full application, because their project looks like it might be a good fit and could be competitive. However, if particularly for those of you that have applied in the past, are familiar with all the categories, and may feel that, or miss the opportunity to do an EOI, you absolutely are able to submit a full application through the IGX system. Another question we get is, I'm working on a full application right now. This is the case right now, and I can't find a submit. And so it's important to note the application submit period, which is posted on the website, is very specific. There's two reasons. So you're working on an application that's outside of that submission period, and so the submission period, remind me, Pat, we're talking about, is it May 6th?
It starts May 6th and ends June 5th. June 5th, the deadline.
June 5th. So that's the time frame during which the submit button will appear in your application. And of course, you won't be able to submit unless you complete all the sections without errors. A second reason you might not see the submit button even after May 6th is that you're registered and you're using the system as a grantee staff designation. And so only grant administrators or the users that are identified as grant administrators or designated as such in IGX will be the only ones that will be able to see the submit button in order to submit the application on behalf of that organization. And then let's see, how long does the process take and when can I expect to receive notice of funding decision? We've covered that in our timeline. We do plan to conduct all of the collaborative review process over the course of the summer and to notify applicants as early in the fall as we are able to. So Pat, I see there's some questions coming in. Do you want to take this about the webinars and the decks?
Sure, yeah. So we have a couple questions. Will we be able to see the webinar again? Can we have access to the slides? So yes, absolutely. So we will be uploading both the recording of this webinar as well as the deck that we're presenting here to the One Stop website. If you go to mass.gov/onestop, we have a section there for webinars. We also got a question about, is there a limit to the number of EOIs that a community can submit? Nope, completely, it's unlimited. We do recommend that that you continue to prioritize your projects. But yeah, in our new structure, organizations can continue to submit EOI forms for feedback.
Great.
Yep. Anything that
I'm going to jump. Yeah, we have several questions here related to whether we can get an applicant can get funding from multiple sources. And so there's one that can one site or project, if they submit 2 different scopes, so could they be funded separately through different programs? And does this mean it would be possible to seek funding for multiple projects in one funding round? And then so in terms of those questions, yes, yes. There is a possibility the same organization can submit if they have discrete projects in different parts of the continuum, absolutely submit them all. And if they are competitive on their own right in each category, And it is possible that in the same round, the same entity could get, multiple grants. If you look at the website from past years, you'll see that there are entities that did, in fact, receive multiple grants within the same round, but for different projects. They could have gotten a planning grant as well as a Masterworks grant. Maybe they got a brownfields grant. So it is possible to receive multiple grants. We will note, however, that if you submit similar projects within the same category, so if you're doing site prep and you submit a couple of it, you technically are competing against yourself. And so each project will be reviewed independently and also in comparison or in lieu of all the other applications in that same category. And then there's another question about the agencies if we ever work together to collaborate with an organization. I presume that means the question is about whether the three agencies here work with other state agencies. And there have been cases in the past through the referral process where we've had the opportunity, but that's essentially on a case-by-case basis. It's not going to be always the case. Pat, you want to take, let's see what we got here.
Sure, yeah, and I do see one question, another question about the EOI about when the form's going to be available. So it'll be available this Friday, February 9th. We'll be updating our website with the new expression of interest form. So let me see. We have a question. If we're funded in 2023, are we eligible for funding in 2024? Answer is yes. There's no, we don't have any rules about, if you're funded in one round, you don't have to wait to be funded again. So yeah, certainly encourage folks that were funded in the past to apply again if you have a good project. Let me see. So here we have
the question, the SAMR.
Yeah, so that's a technical question. So as part of the submitting the EOI or full app, does One Stop need applicant to apply to get a SAM number or UEI? And the answer is no. When you're so our IGX system, just kind of the registration form within the system does include a space for the SAM number, but that's not a required field. You do need to submit include your EIN number, but SAM or DUNS or any of those other identifiers are not required. Let me see. Are there overall guidelines for each grant program on the One Stop website, or do you have to go to each department for this information? So we have links to each program's website right from the One Stop website where you can access the guidelines. In addition, when you're completing your application, kind of based off your some of the early questions you answer, the system will kind of be able to tell you which program's likely to review the application, and we'll provide a link at that time to those guidelines. It looks like we're coming up to time. It looks like there's one for you here.
So the STRAP program, so there's a question that in the STRAP, which is a small town road access program, we have roads that are flooded and impassable during after rainstorms. Is this sort of project eligible? So in the Masterworks, so this was likely in the infrastructure category under roads, streets. And so in the guidelines, you'll find that there is priority given to public safety concerns and access safety. And so the extent to which the applicant is able to articulate the dangerous situation, et cetera, that is likely to make a project competitive. I will say a lot of the applications are eligible. Keep in mind, these are competitive grant programs. So while it may be eligible and it may it's going to be read and reviewed along with every other small town road project, and the extent to which the urgency is high, then that'll be taken into account for sure.
Well, we're at 12:59 right now, so I know there are quite a few questions we didn't get to, but we'll certainly take a look through all the questions submitted Um, and
Yep.
post
Thank you.
responses.
Yep, and so that kind of concludes webinar one. We do want to remind you that we have a second webinar coming up. And if you're interested in participating in that, please register. The technology webinar will be posted later after the two webinars. For all information, please visit www.mass.gov/one-stop. And particularly for the MBTA community's requirements, you can read about that at /MBTA communities. Thank you so much for your participation. All of this information will be posted on the website.
Thank you.